Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. Well, the trial of a man accused of driving his truck into a Muslim family in London continues here in Windsor. Today, the jury hearing some of what happened in the aftermath of that attack. Plus, a home that exploded in Forest Glades 6 months ago is causing some issues for neighbors. We have that story, and we're getting a look tonight at just how long it will take to pay off the subsidies governments gave to Stellantis. It's been nearly 6 months since a house exploded in Forest Glade, but some of the debris still hasn't been cleaned up. And as Dale Mulner reports, it's more than just an eyesore for the neighbors, but a breeding ground for unwanted pests.
The house next door to 10,059 Aspen Lane exploded on March 19th, also damaging neighboring homes. There is still debris littering the fenced-off site, and mosquitoes have been breeding in the swimming pool.
I'm shaken up. I have to remind myself. Every day I look out the window, and it's a reminder of what happened. I could have lost my daughter. She ran out for her life that night.
The property has also been a nightmare for the rest of the neighbors. They're dealing with skunks, they're dealing with rats, and the mosquitoes here are incredible. Aaron and Leanne Lambros's home was also damaged.
Our entire house had to be resided. Our entire fence was gone. Half of their house was in our backyard, so there was shards of glass, shards of brick. There was like molten pieces of like metal that was like trapped in our grass.
Well, this has given us a lot of PTSD. Like, I had to take time off of work for stress and anxiety.
Police have charged a 24-year-old man with arson in the case. Ward Councillor Angelo Marignani says the arson charges are holding up insurance payments to the property owner, and that's what's causing the delay.
And I empathize with the residents. I mean, it is a concern. There are mosquitoes as a result of this, and we need to address it as soon as possible, and I will do my best to see so.
The city building department does have 2 orders against the property, one to keep the pool maintained and the other to clean up the site. The Bylaw Enforcement Division is also ordering the weeds cut, but this building official says they have to give the owners another month to comply with the cleanup order, and then they might be able to pursue a court order, but it takes time.
Our first court appearances are anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks before we get our first appearance in court, and then typically the normal court processes before there's any discussions, resolutions, it could take months.
I think that's absolutely ridiculous. I just think, like, it can be cleaned up and charge the taxes and then if insurance covers them, insurance can then pay. If insurance is going to cover them either way, they have to clean it up.
But Bonnie says the city has more legal clout if it waits for a conviction in court. So for now, some of the neighbors are checking into any legal action that can be taken on their own.
Basically, it's just been a nightmare, from the minute that it happened until now.
Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
Well, tonight we're getting a better look at just how much it will cost to break even on EV production subsidies for 2 big automakers. Governments handed out billions of dollars in tax breaks between the Stellantis LG plant in Windsor and the Volkswagen build in St. Thomas. The reason behind those massive subsidies was to beat out incentives in the U.S. 20 years is how long it will take to break even on the nearly $30 billion in subsidies given out by the government to automotive plants in Windsor and St. Thomas. That's according to a new report by the Parliamentary Budget Officer, a much longer timeline than Ottawa's previous estimate.
I think these are very optimistic assumptions, and that's why we did not go for such an optimistic scenario.
Ottawa said back in the spring the Volkswagen plant in St. Thomas would earn back the subsidy in under 5 years. Governments committed up to $13 billion in subsidies to that plant and about $15 billion for the plant in Windsor.
We will find out in the next several years whether that was a wise move when we see that there is or is not the development of an electric vehicle ecosystem domestically and the extent to which that happens.
Canadian Taxpayers Federation says the massive subsidies have set a bad precedent.
And of course, there are going to be other auto companies in the future, potentially companies in other sectors who are going to come to the federal and provincial governments and say, You gave these other companies billions of dollars. Now it's our turn.
However, some say the PBO isn't looking at the whole picture.
What it doesn't capture is all of the spin-off economic benefits that are coming to communities like ours here in Windsor, and you're already seeing it.
The Ontario government hasn't announced a break-even timeline for the plants, but PBO estimates it will be the same as Ottawa's. In a statement today, Ontario's Minister of Economic Development said the report reinforces the significant long-term benefits the Stellantis and Volkswagen investments will bring to the province. It also acknowledges that it only analyzed a fraction of the benefits gained from the investments. These projects will create tens of thousands of good-paying direct and indirect jobs. This Windsor-Tecumseh MP says the 20 years will be worth it.
The choice is clear. We made our decision. We absolutely stick by it. We would do it 1,000 times over because we know that it is good for Canada and it is great for communities like ours here in Windsor.
The jury heard testimony from witnesses today in the trial of Nathaniel Veltman. He's accused of driving his truck into a Muslim family in London. One of the witnesses, a cab driver, told the court that Veltman admitted he had killed someone. Chris Ensing has more as the trial continues here in Windsor. And a warning, this story contains video and information that viewers may find disturbing.
Surveillance cameras captured scenes that are not in dispute. The prosecution and the defense agree. On June 6, 2021, Nathaniel Veltman drove his black pickup truck down Hyde Park Road, spotting the Ufsall family on the sidewalk. He makes a U-turn and drives towards them. The jury shown video of the truck heading toward the family and jumping the curb. Data collected from the vehicle shows the truck steered right toward the family. 5 seconds before hitting them, that the gas pedal was completely pressed down and the brake pedal was never touched. 4 members of the Ufsall family died. A young boy survived. Veltman, charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder, left the scene driving toward a mall parking lot. In a video shown to the jury, a black pickup truck with a crumpled hood pulls into the parking lot and stops beside a cab. The cab driver, Azidin Jangiri, testified in court that the man inside the truck, wearing a military-style helmet and a bulletproof vest, told him to call 911. Jahangiri said the driver told him, "I just hit someone. Call the cops," and said, quote, "I killed someone." Jahangiri, who testified he saw blood on the front of the truck, said he nervously dialed 911 and put the call on speaker. That call was played in court.
Yes.
What's the plate on it?
The plate is. It was me. It was me that did it. Come arrest me.
Okay, what's the plate on the truck? Can you ask him his name?
I don't know, but it was me that crashed into them. Get over in this parking
Okay,
lot.
what's your name?
Nate Veltman.
Sorry, what's your name?
Nate Veltman.
Are you injured?
Nope, I did it on purpose.
The cab driver gave the license plate number of the truck and waved to police passing by on the street. Veltman, on his knees, surrendering to police. The cab driver testified that he did not hear the police say anything during the arrest, only that the accused told him to videotape that arrest, which he didn't do. Jahangiri also testified the accused was smiling and calm and appeared to be almost laughing. Veltman has pleaded not guilty to all counts. Chris Ensing, CBC News, Windsor, Ontario.
Well, the English Public School Board will now allow people to attend in its public meetings in person once again. Those meetings were closed to parents and students at the end of the last school year because some trustees and staff said they felt unsafe. That decision sparking a protest. And 1 week from today, doors to the public meetings will reopen, but there are some changes. The board has established a set of standards the public is expected to abide by. All visitors must now sign in and out, and signs, posters, and other props won't be allowed in the building. There's also a maximum of 133 seats available for the public to use. Trustees and board staff previously said negative comments and hostility coming from some members of the public during meetings is what made them feel unsafe. Well, it might not be the final scene for the former Silver City movie theater after all. Owner Joe McHale is proposing redeveloping most of the building into theater space. A Windsor Council committee is recommending the developer get about $1.9 million in city grants over the next 10 years. The money would come from the Business Development Grant Program. The building has sat vacant for nearly 2 years. Part of the plan is for office or retail space, which wouldn't be covered by tax dollars. There could be as many as 30 full-time staff. The city's Development and Heritage Standing Committee approved the application. Now it's set to move to council for that final approval. Health Canada has approved a new Moderna COVID-19 vaccine for all Canadians aged 6 months and older. It targets the Omicron variant XBB.1.5. CBC's Christine Birak has the details.
With the latest COVID-19 shot now approved, this is the advice from Health Canada.
Individuals who are 5 years of age and older should receive 1 dose of the vaccine, regardless of their COVID-19 vaccination history.
The Moderna vaccine, along with 2 others still under review, including Pfizer, no longer include the original strain of the virus. Instead, they specifically target a current version of the Omicron variant that's expected to circulate this fall and winter.
In the last few weeks, we have started to see an increase in COVID-19 indicators across many areas of the country, including hospitalizations.
The most recent data show COVID-19 killing 48 Canadians in a week. And while far from the peak last year, there are still about 2,165 Canadians lying in hospital beds with the virus, an uptick from the previous week.
I see these patients, and essentially they're people who are coming in with their COVID, which has triggered off an underlying problem that they had.
Health officials insist people at highest risk of severe disease include adults over 65, long-term care home residents, and those with underlying medical conditions.
In that group of people with underlying conditions, those underlying conditions are principally people with active cancer who are being treated, people who are transplant recipients, and people who are under very active treatment for serious conditions.
The first doses of the new Moderna vaccine will start arriving this week and be widely rolled out by the provinces and territories in October. With another respiratory virus season fast approaching and hospitals still under pressure, doctors are hoping Canadians will start rolling up their sleeves for a flu and COVID shot at the same time. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
If you didn't think the cost of rent could get higher, it's hit another record in August, according to a new report from rentals.ca. Average asking rents in Canada are up 9.6% from a year earlier, with rent prices hitting $2,117 last month. The most expensive rents are in Vancouver, where a 1-bedroom unit cost just under $3,000 a month. The lowest rate in Regina, where a 1-bedroom goes for a little more than $1,000. Now, over the last year, there's more apartment completions since the 1970s. But despite that, rent has still stayed exceptionally high. The report attributes this to Canada's population growth and the cost to own your own home. And with those soaring rental costs and a tight rental market, finding a good place can feel like a win. That's how one victim of a scam felt when she thought she had signed a lease for an apartment and even handed over money. But the place wasn't a long-term rental at all. And the person who showed it to her didn't own it or even live there. Brittany Spencer has the story.
This isn't exactly where Jory Livingston expected to be this September. She started her career as a paramedic earlier this year and thought she'd be settling into a new apartment. Instead, she's living with her parents. She thought she'd found a great place to live online, but it turned out to be a scam.
I was really excited for the apartment. It was a nice spot, especially just for like a 1-bedroom. It had lots of space. I never would have imagined what was about to happen.
Livingston made an appointment to see a place, and when she got there, the person she'd been messaging with, the supposed landlord, showed her around. She says it was the perfect fit and signed a lease right away. She sent a damage deposit and the first month's rent, a total of $2,300. Her plan was to move in by the end of August. But as moving day approached, the person disappeared, and it turns out the unit wasn't his. It was a short-term rental. He was just staying for the night.
He rented an Airbnb and showed a bunch of people the spot for one evening. He just rented it for one evening, had a bunch of people in, got a bunch of people to sign a lease, send some money. People are really desperate for housing right now and for rentals, so it's pretty evil to try to benefit off that.
Charlottetown police say they're investigating 5 different reports of rental fraud at the same address, and there are 2 investigations happening in Moncton too. RCMP are getting reports as well. They're investigating 3 cases of rental fraud in Stratford right now. No charges have been laid, but police say they believe they're all connected to the same person. Police say online rental scams are common, but these ones are unusual because people are meeting in person and seeing the apartments, and there are some things potential tenants can do to avoid being taken in.
You can always do a quick search online, and if this is an online scam, often there might be something connected to that address. If you're going to the apartment yourself, it's always good practice to speak with other tenants in the building. I can say with an investigation like this, we'd be looking to identify the people involved. So, any photos or information about the people who received the monies, any information about their vehicle is certainly a benefit.
For now, Livingston is hopeful the person is caught, and she's grateful she has a place to stay, but knows many others may not be as lucky. Brittany Spencer, CBC News, Murray River.
A local graffiti artist is giving a run-down house in downtown Windsor a splash of color. Danielle Combardier, more commonly known as Denial, worked with a Detroit artist to cover this building in color. This is on Olette Avenue near Elliott Street. It's part of a bigger initiative called Free for All Walls, a mural festival coming to Windsor next month. Well, a local activist and social justice advocate has died. Joan Tinkus is being remembered for standing for peace.
You can't kill an idea. These people will certainly, you can kill a lot of them, but you can't kill them all.
She was one of the founding members of the Women in Black. They held vigils at the Ambassador Bridge calling for an end to war. Tinkus was an ex-nun who spent decades teaching in the Dominican Republic. She also was involved in the local feminist movement.
She was a strong activist, but she was very gentle and kind and very inclusive too. And she was a hero.
Tinkus was awarded a presidential medal in the Dominican Republic in July for all the humanitarian work she did in the country. She died in hospice last week at the age of 89. Well, there's a live look at the tower cam. A little chillier today, that's for sure, but that sun still feels awful good. We chat with Colette after the break. was over at my grandparents' last night for dinner, and they had just finished closing up the pool for the summer, which is always a little bit upsetting to me, the summer kind of coming to an end slowly. But what do you think? Was that a good time? Are you predicting any more swimming weather?
I think they know what they're doing. I do. Yeah, it's all these subtle things, right? With closing the pool and getting things kind of put away, and there's more of a feel of fall in the air now as we are approaching it. And also it's back to school time. So I thought we'd start off there with back to school and take a look at your forecast. Also because parents, I just want you to be able to get the kids kind of prepared in terms of maybe some layers, because we have some slightly cooler air moving in. So in the morning, even at 8 a.m., still about 11 degrees, mix of sun and cloud. Wind's not terribly strong, but it'll be a little bit breezy the next couple of days. And so you want to sort of make sure they're going to be warm enough as they're heading off. And speaking of warmth, we have it at the moment. I mean, a lot of nice readings, upper teens, those low 20s. It's just, unless your pool is heated, you don't necessarily find that the water is warm enough with these kinds of conditions. And we've kind of been watching too, seeing how things are happening with our humidity, and it's been, dialing back. And as well, we're seeing most of the rain off to the east and northeast, and those are the areas in Ontario where it's been way more significant, northeastern Ontario with rainfall warnings. But you see this is some of that instability behind the system. So still enough that we're seeing these kind of scattered showers that are rolling in through our evening hours and through the overnight. And I'm going to come back to our forecast, but I did want to drop into the Atlantic and look at our tropical activity. Still, yes, Hurricane Margot, but we're focusing on Hurricane Lee. And of course, that's because of the potential that we could be seeing Lee eventually. And this is likely going to be towards next weekend. Moving closer and taking a direction towards Atlantic Canada. So because of that, we're going to keep watching this, and our system doesn't seem to want to advance for me right now, so I'll just tell you all about it, which is that it will go over some cooler waters, and with that weaken, but it's probably going to expand that wind field as well, even though it weakened. So approaching right now, it appears there could be changes to the southwestern parts of Nova Scotia as a weakened Category 1 hurricane, or perhaps even just as tropical storm and then becoming post-tropical. And that's towards this coming weekend. So watching our friends there very carefully. Sorry that I can't update the graphics there for you just to talk about our conditions for tomorrow. But Meg, we are looking at 19 degrees and a pretty pleasant day. Just the slimmest chance for an isolated shower. Most folks will stay dry.
Yes, I know we're having a bit of technical issues there, but what people need to take away is if your kid's standing out at the bus stop tomorrow morning, they're going to need a jacket. Is that right?
Yeah, a jacket, a sweater, something that they can take off later into the afternoon, or for the playground, that kind of thing.
Yeah, when they start to sweat on the playground.
You got it.
Thanks so much, Colette.
You're welcome.
Well, a spill on a busy Montreal highway has added a pop of color to the road. We have more on that coming up. We have the latest on the earthquake disaster in Morocco. More than 2,900 people are now confirmed dead, and crews are likely to find many more deceased. Rescuers have been asking crowds to be silent so they can listen for people trapped under collapsed homes. This team is from Spain. Foreign rescuers are in some of the hardest hit villages in the high Atlas Mountains south of Marrakesh. Morocco's government is under pressure to accept more foreign help, but so far it's only accepting assistance from Spain, the UK, Qatar, and the UAE. Survivors in some remote places say they have been left to fend for themselves. In this devastated mountain village, recovery work is still being done by hand. Villagers say an official came to count the number of dead after the 6.8 magnitude quake struck Friday night, but they're still waiting for government help to arrive. Well, Apple unveiled the latest versions of a couple of its devices today. The iconic iPhone got a makeover that will improve battery life, upgrade the camera, and make it more environmentally friendly with recycled components. But the biggest change is the switch to a USB-C charging port in response to legislation from the European Union that requires all new devices use it as of the next year. The company also introduced an updated version of its Apple Watch. It will start at $549 and the new iPhone at just over $1,100. Cleanup crews in Montreal have been working for hours to remove white paint that spilled across a busy highway this morning. A heavy truck dropped the load of paint when it braked suddenly. Other vehicles drove through the mess, spreading it out across all lanes of Highway 40. Paint obscured lane markers for hundreds of meters. Quebec Provincial Police are investigating whether the paint was properly secured inside the truck, and if it wasn't, the driver could receive a fine. The highway began opening up again last hour. Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also download the CBC News app for stories that matter most to you. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night.